Comics, in general, are serialized, told across hundreds of issues with arcs stretching as long as the writer wants. But sometimes you want to tell a standalone story, intended to be read from the jump, or just to separate it from the overall narrative. That's the point of one-shots, single issues, one and done. But it would take some time for them to crop up, with Marvel's first being done out of practicality rather than authorial intent. Iron Man and the Submariner is Marvel's first one-shot, released in 1968. Looking back, you'd assume it's a crossover between Iron Man and the Submariner, but that isn't the case. Back in the 60s, Marvel released anthology series that had two unrelated stories per issue, each with their own hero. For example, half of every Tales of Suspense issue was an Iron Man story, with ongoing plots and characters, while the other half was a Captain America story. The same went for Tales to Astonish, featuring Hulk and Namor the Submariner. As the 60s came to a close, though, Marvel wanted to take the two characters and give them each their own book, partly so they could have full-length stories, and partly so people would buy twice as many books. The plan for this was to have Captain America and Hulk stay in the same book and keep their numbering, so Tales of Suspense number 99 becomes Captain America number 100, while Iron Man and Namor would start their own books at number 1, Iron Man number 1 and Submariner number 1. However, both characters had a half-length story left over from their anthologies, so they were combined to form Marvel's first one-shot, Iron Man and the Submariner number 1. Once those half-stories were published, the two new series started, so Iron Man and the Submariner didn't need a number 2. What this means is that this is a god-awful starting point, not a one-shot you can just pick up and read. Both characters are in the middle of multi-issue arcs. Iron Man is held captive by the criminal organization Magia aboard a gambling boat when it is attacked by the criminal organization AIM, and the issue sees his attempted escape as his friend tries to save the civilians. The issue ends with him getting captured by AIM, so it doesn't even end well, concluding in Iron Man number 1. For Submariner, Namor is fighting the man called Destiny, who holds him in place with telekinesis while expositing about how he met Namor's dad and obtained his psychic powers. Namor then breaks free and promptly traps himself beneath an avalanche as Destiny goes free. This also doesn't even end well, and is an arc that would run for several issues. Both stories and the book as a whole end with teasers that the characters are getting their own series, which just kind of makes it funnier. This is a one-shot in name only, existing simultaneously as Tales of Suspense 100, Iron Man 0, Tales to Astonish 102, and Submariner 0. It's purely practical. What has me curious now, though, is the second Marvel one-shot. I expected this to just be some quick research, but it took me quite a bit to find an answer without an asterisk. The most obvious choice is Tales of Asgard, a one-shot released later in 1968 that reprints a bunch of stories from Journey into Mystery. While this is a solid collection, the fact that it's all reprints makes me hesitant to count it. Like, this isn't a story written as a one-shot, this is 10 stories compiled together. So like, they did only make one, maybe on purpose, but it's not new material, so I kept looking. Around 1971, Marvel published a handful of specials for their non-superhero books, like Rawhide Kid and Mad About Millie. While these only ever got one issue each, it's hard to tell if this was intended or if there would have been additional issues if the main series wasn't cancelled. So I kept looking. The first big one is 1973's Western Team-Up starring the Rawhide Kid and released after the end of his own series. It looks promising, but it does say first issue on the cover, so there may have been more. You'd think if it was a monthly, they would have just released a second issue at least, but maybe it was only supposed to be released every 2 or 4 months and just did so badly they cancelled it immediately. Unfortunately, I can't tell, so I kept looking. 1974 gave us giant-sized superheroes featuring Spider-Man, an all-new Spider-Man story. While there is no issue 2, this series was always meant to have more issues, and it did get them, they just changed the name and reset the numbering back to issue 1. It's technically a one-shot, but it wasn't meant to be, so I kept looking. 1975 gave us giant-sized X-Men, a soft reboot of the X-Men franchise. I thought this would be it, since issue 1 is the only one anybody talks about, but nope, there's another issue. It only does reprints, so yeah, it is irrelevant, but since it is an extra issue, this doesn't count either, so I kept looking. Marvel released a handful of giant-sized series at the time, some of them one-shots, but they're all reprint series, so I kept looking. Then, at the end of 1975, we got something unconventional. A black and white magazine one-shot called Marvel Super Action, with all new stories about the Punisher and Mockingbird. Aside from being in black and white, this is pretty much exactly what I was looking for. New material with Marvel characters that is explicitly intended to have one issue. Even the foreword calls it a one-shot. I'd say this is it, but just for fun, I went to look for the first color one-shot. And wouldn't you know, in 1976, Marvel released a color one-shot with all new material designed to be a one-shot, Superman vs. the Amazing Spider-Man. No, seriously, this is a Marvel-DC crossover and is unironically their next one-shot. This is hilarious. I would count this. It's not a pure Marvel book though, being half published by DC, so I decided to keep looking for a pure Marvel book, just to iron out all the asterisks. Do you understand why I said there were so many asterisks? Later that year gave us 2001: A Space Odyssey? Yeah, Marvel made a comic adaptation of hit movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, all in one issue. So does this count? I mean, I guess it's a one-shot published by Marvel that's designed to be a one-shot, but like, it doesn't use Marvel characters or take place in the Marvel universe, so like, you could count it. I won't argue with you, but I count this less than Superman vs. Spider-Man, to be honest, so I kept looking. Finally, we come to the end of our search with 1977's Captain America's Bicentennial Battles. Released to commemorate America's 200th birthday, this one-shot sees Captain America engage in all-new adventures about American history. I feel that this book is definitively the first Marvel one-shot since Iron Man and the Submariner without an asterisk. Not a reprint, not a potentially canceled series, not a series that got renamed and renumbered, not a series where every issue but number 1 has a reprint, not black and white, not co-published by DC, and not a film adaptation with no Marvel characters. Just a good, standard Marvel superheroes one-shot, nearly a decade after the original. I don't think I missed any, but if I did, please let me know down in the comments below. I could not find any research on the second one-shot. In the meantime, I've been Raventry, and thanks for watching.